Welcome to Nenya Folktales, where every story teaches you about betrayal, karma, love, and life lessons. If you love emotional stories with crazy twists, subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss a new story every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday by 8 p.m. Now, let's get into today's story. Every morning, they treated her like she didn't matter. She cooked their meals. She cleaned every room in their million-dollar mansion. She listened to every insult without answering back. To everyone who walked through those doors, she was nothing more than a housekeeper. But sometimes, the person everyone looks down on is carrying a secret, powerful enough to change every life in the room. And before this day came to an end, one unexpected visitor would turn that mansion upside down forever. The sun had barely risen over Buckhead, Atlanta, Georgia, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city. Inside a beautiful white mansion, surrounded by perfectly trimmed hedges and expensive luxury cars, the lights in the kitchen were already on. The woman responsible for that was Grace Williams. At 43 years old, Grace carried herself with quiet dignity. She was a Black American woman with smooth, dark skin, gentle brown eyes, and a peaceful smile that rarely disappeared, even on the hardest days. Every weekday, her alarm rang at 5 o'clock in the morning. By 5:30, breakfast was already cooking. Fresh pancakes, turkey bacon, scrambled eggs, fresh orange juice. Everything had to be perfect before the Bennett family came downstairs. Grace moved around the kitchen with practiced hands. She knew exactly how Mr. Marcus Bennett liked his coffee. She knew Mrs. Vanessa Bennett hated seeing fingerprints on the dining table. She knew 10-year-old Mia Bennett refused to eat strawberries unless they were sliced into tiny heart shapes. And she knew 13-year-old Jaden Bennett always sneaked into the kitchen before school, hoping to steal an extra pancake. Just as she placed the last plate on the dining table, small footsteps came running toward her. "Auntie Grace." Jaden wrapped his arms around her waist with a bright smile. Grace laughed softly. "Good morning, sleepyhead. I smelled pancakes upstairs. I had a feeling you would. I knew you would make extra." She smiled. "I always do." Before Jaden could reach for a pancake, another voice echoed through the dining room. "Jaden." The boy immediately froze. His mother, Vanessa Bennett, walked downstairs, wearing an expensive silk robe, holding her phone in one hand. She looked at Grace, before turning to her son. "How many times do I have to tell you?" Jaden sighed. "What, Mom? She isn't your aunt." The smile slowly disappeared from Grace's face. Vanessa folded her arms. "She's our employee." Jaden looked embarrassed. "I know, but..." "No but. Call people by what they are." The room became painfully quiet. Grace forced a smile. "It's okay." Jaden looked at Grace with apologetic eyes before sitting down. Vanessa walked past Grace without saying good morning. Instead, she inspected the dining table, like a restaurant manager looking for mistakes. She picked up a spoon. "This isn't polished properly. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll replace it." She touched the glass. "There are watermarks. I'll clean them immediately." She took a sip of the orange juice. "It should have been colder." "Yes, ma'am." Every answer Grace gave was calm, respectful, never defensive, almost as if she had trained herself never to react. A few moments later, Marcus Bennett entered the dining room, dressed in a navy blue business suit. He was 46 years old, and one of Atlanta's most respected real estate developers. Business magazines described him as a self-made millionaire. People admired his success. Few knew how close he had once come to losing everything. "Morning," Marcus said quietly. "Good morning, sir," Grace replied. She placed his coffee beside him, before he even asked. Marcus smiled. "Thank you," Vanessa noticed. "You appreciate her too much." Marcus looked confused. "I thanked her. You thank the help more than you thank me." "I was only being polite." Vanessa shrugged. "I just find it strange." Grace quietly stepped away before the conversation became uncomfortable. She carried a basket of freshly washed towels toward the laundry room. As she walked through the hallway, her phone vibrated inside her apron pocket. She quickly looked around to make sure nobody was watching. The message came from someone saved, simply as, "Clara." Grace read it. "The paperwork is finally complete. We need to meet soon. Don't wait too much longer." Grace stared at the screen for several seconds before locking the phone. She slipped it back into her pocket without replying. Whatever the message meant, it clearly wasn't ordinary. Outside, the Bennett mansion looked like something from a magazine. The property covered nearly 3 acres. A private swimming pool sparkled behind the house. Luxury SUVs sat inside the garage. Fresh flowers lined the entrance. Neighbors often slowed their cars just to admire the beautiful estate. Many believed the Bennetts represented the American dream: wealth, success, a perfect marriage, beautiful children. But every perfect picture has cracks no one can see. Later that afternoon, Vanessa prepared for a charity luncheon with several of Atlanta's wealthiest women. Grace spent hours cooking: baked salmon, garlic mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, mini cheesecakes, fresh fruit platters. Everything looked flawless. As guests began arriving, expensive perfumes filled the house. Laughter echoed through the living room. One woman looked toward Grace. "Your housekeeper seems very quiet." Vanessa smiled. "That's because she knows her place." The women laughed. Another guest whispered, "I wish mine listened that well." Vanessa laughed even harder. Trust me, you have to be firm with people like that. Give them too much kindness, and they'll start thinking they're family. More laughter filled the room. Grace continued serving drinks without lifting her head. If the words hurt her, she refused to show it. From across the room, Marcus watched everything. His face tightened with guilt. More than once, it looked as though he wanted to speak, but every single time, he remained silent. And sometimes, silence hurts more than cruel words. As evening approached, the guests slowly began leaving. Grace started cleaning the dining room alone. She carefully stacked the expensive china plates before wiping the long oak table. Suddenly, the front gate security system chimed. Once, then again. The butler looked at the security monitor. His expression changed immediately. Mr. Bennett? Marcus walked over. What is it? The butler swallowed. There's a woman at the gate. So? She says she's an attorney. Marcus's heartbeat quickened. Did she give her name? Yes, sir. The butler looked down at the visitor's log. She said her name is Clara Robinson. Grace, who had been quietly polishing a wineglass across the room, froze. For the first time that day, the peaceful smile disappeared from her face. The name Clara Robinson echoed through the mansion, like a whisper no one else understood. Grace's hands froze around the wineglass she was polishing. For just a second, her calm expression disappeared. Then, as quickly as it had changed, she forced herself to smile again and continued working as though nothing had happened. Across the room, Marcus Bennett wasn't nearly as successful at hiding his emotions. The color drained from his face. His fingers tightened around the back of a dining chair. Vanessa noticed immediately. She narrowed her eyes. Marcus, are you okay? He cleared his throat. I'm fine. You don't look fine. I'm just tired. Before Vanessa could ask another question, the butler spoke again. Sir, should I let the attorney inside? Marcus hesitated. His eyes briefly met Grace's. She lowered her gaze without saying a word. Tell her, Marcus began before stopping himself. No, actually, tell her I'll call her tomorrow. The butler nodded and walked away. Grace quietly released the breath she had been holding, but deep inside, she knew this couldn't be delayed forever. Some truths wait patiently, but they never disappear. The following morning began like every other morning. Grace woke before sunrise. She prepared breakfast, packed lunches, folded laundry, watered the flowers. She moved through the mansion like a shadow, always present, rarely noticed. Only one person truly appreciated her. Little Mia Bennett. The 10-year-old walked into the kitchen carrying a school project. Auntie Grace? Grace smiled. Yes, sweetheart. My teacher said we should draw someone who inspires us. That's wonderful. I drew you. Grace blinked. Me? Mia nodded proudly. Because you're kind to everyone, even when people aren't kind to you. Grace's eyes became watery. She gently hugged the little girl. Thank you. Just then, Vanessa walked into the kitchen. What are you two doing? Mia held up the drawing. Look, Mommy, I drew Auntie Grace. Vanessa's smile vanished. She took the paper from Mia's hands. Her face hardened. You should have drawn your father, or your mother, Mom. Instead of returning the drawing, Vanessa folded it, then calmly dropped it into the trash can. Mia gasped. My picture. You'll make another one. Tears filled the little girl's eyes. Grace immediately knelt beside her. It's okay. No, it isn't, Mia whispered. Grace gently wiped away her tears. There are some things we don't throw away. What? A kind heart. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Grace. Yes, ma'am. Finish cleaning the upstairs windows. Right away. Grace quietly walked away. She didn't even look toward the trash can where Mia's drawing now lay, crumpled beneath coffee filters and paper towels. But Marcus had seen everything. He waited until Vanessa left the kitchen. Then he quietly reached into the trash. He unfolded the drawing. Across the top were large, colorful letters. My hero. Below them was a picture of Grace, holding both children by the hand. Marcus stared at the drawing for a long time. His eyes slowly filled with regret. Later that afternoon, Grace carried clean towels toward the guest wing. As she passed Marcus's home office, she heard someone call softly. Grace. She stopped. Marcus stepped into the hallway. Can we talk? She looked around. No one is here. Grace sighed. We've had this conversation before. I know. I'm trying to fix everything. You've been trying for 4 years. Marcus lowered his head. I just need more time. Grace smiled sadly. Time isn't always the answer. It is this time. She shook her head. Marcus, every promise has an expiration date. He looked at her with eyes full of guilt. I never meant for any of this to happen. I believe you. But believing you doesn't erase what I've lived through. He couldn't argue, because she was right. Every insult she endured, he heard. Every humiliation, he watched. Every opportunity to tell the truth, he ignored. Before either of them could speak again, Vanessa's voice echoed down the hallway. Marcus! Grace immediately stepped back. I should go. She disappeared before Vanessa reached them. Vanessa looked suspiciously toward the hallway. Were you talking to Grace? Marcus answered too quickly. No, she studied his face. You've become a terrible liar. That evening, the Bennett family hosted another dinner. Grace served the meal quietly. One of Marcus's business partners admired the mansion. "This place is incredible." Marcus forced a smile. "Thank you." Vanessa laughed proudly. "I designed almost every room myself." The guests complimented the artwork, the furniture, the expensive decor. Everyone praised the Bennett family's success. Grace silently refilled water glasses. Not one person thanked her. Not one person noticed she had spent the entire day preparing the dinner they were enjoying. As dessert was served, one guest smiled at Vanessa. "You must feel safe knowing loyal employees like Grace are hard to find." Vanessa laughed. "Oh, she's loyal." She looked directly at Grace. "She knows she'd never find another house like this." Grace paused for the briefest moment. Then she continued serving cheesecake. No expression. No reply. Only silence. But Marcus closed his eyes. Those words hurt because they couldn't have been more wrong. Late that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Grace sat alone on the small bench outside the guest quarters. The Atlanta skyline shimmered in the distance. Her phone vibrated again. It was Clara. This time, Grace answered. "Hello, Grace. I know why you're calling. I've delayed this long enough because you asked me to. I know. But I need an answer." Grace looked back at the brightly lit mansion, a place filled with beautiful rooms and painful memories. She spoke softly. "Give him one last chance." Clara was silent. "Grace, he made a promise. And if he breaks it?" Grace's eyes slowly filled with tears. "Then next time, I won't stop you." Grace ended the call. At that exact moment, someone watching from an upstairs bedroom quietly stepped away from the window. Vanessa. She hadn't heard the entire conversation. Only one sentence. "Give him one last chance." Her heart began to race. One question kept repeating inside her mind. Who exactly was Grace talking about? And what promise was everyone hiding? Vanessa barely slept that night. Grace's words echoed in her mind over and over again. Give him one last chance. One last chance for what? Who was Grace talking to? And why did Marcus look nervous every time Grace was mentioned? For the first time since Grace had started working in the mansion, Vanessa began to wonder if there was something she didn't know. The next morning, she woke up determined to find out. As always, Grace was already in the kitchen before sunrise. Fresh coffee filled the air. Pancakes sizzled on the stove. School lunches were neatly packed on the counter. Everything was ready before anyone else had even gotten out of bed. Grace believed that whatever happened in her life, she would never allow another person's bitterness to change who she was. She had made that promise to herself years ago, and she intended to keep it. Vanessa walked into the kitchen earlier than usual. Instead of speaking, she quietly watched Grace. Every movement was calm. Every action was organized. There wasn't a single sign that Grace was hiding anything. But Vanessa's suspicion only grew stronger. "Grace." "Yes, ma'am." "How long have you known my husband?" Grace paused for only a second. "Several years." "Several years." "Yes, ma'am." "You never mentioned that. You never asked." Vanessa folded her arms. "So, you knew Marcus before you started working here?" "I did. And how exactly did you meet him?" Grace looked into Vanessa's eyes. "There are some stories that should come from the people who lived them." Vanessa frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means that isn't my story to tell." Vanessa's face darkened. "So now you're keeping secrets with my husband?" "No, ma'am." "Then answer the question." Before Grace could respond, Marcus entered the kitchen. "Good morning." No one answered. He immediately sensed the tension. "Is everything okay?" Vanessa smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, everything is perfect." Marcus wasn't convinced, but he said nothing, again, and once again, his silence protected the wrong person. That afternoon, Vanessa invited her closest friend, Nicole Harper, over for lunch. Nicole was known for one thing. She loved gossip. If there was a secret to uncover, Nicole believed she could find it. After lunch, Vanessa pulled her aside. "I need you to help me." Nicole leaned forward. "With what?" "I think Marcus is hiding something." Nicole's eyebrows shot up. "What kind of something?" "I don't know yet." "Another woman?" Vanessa looked toward the kitchen where Grace was washing dishes. "I think it has something to do with her." Nicole burst into laughter. "The housekeeper?" "I'm serious." Nicole studied Grace through the glass doors. "She doesn't look like someone who could steal a husband." Vanessa sighed. "That's what makes it strange." Nicole smiled. "Leave it to me." For the rest of the afternoon, Nicole found excuses to follow Grace around the house. She asked unnecessary questions. She searched the laundry room. She looked inside the pantry. She even peeked into Grace's small bedroom in the guest quarters, while Grace was outside hanging clothes. The room surprised her. It was simple, neat, almost empty. There were no expensive clothes, no jewelry, no luxury handbags. Just a small bookshelf, a Bible, family photographs turned face down, and a locked wooden box beneath the bed. Nicole smiled to herself. Finally, she reached for the box. Just then, Grace walked into the room. Nicole quickly stepped away. "Oh, I was just looking for the bathroom." Grace looked at the untouched room. "The bathroom is downstairs." Nicole laughed awkwardly. "Oh, right." She hurried out. Grace quietly knelt beside the wooden box. She gently placed her hand on the lid. Inside were memories she wasn't ready to revisit. Not yet. That evening, Marcus returned home later than usual. He found Grace watering flowers near the front entrance. Grace, she looked up. You shouldn't be out here. I like the quiet. Marcus glanced toward the house. I've scheduled another meeting with Clara. Grace didn't answer. This time, I'll fix everything. She gave him a sad smile. I've heard those words before. I mean it. I know you do. Then believe me. Grace looked at the mansion. Believing someone and trusting them are not always the same thing. Marcus lowered his head. He knew he had run out of promises. Inside the house, Vanessa stood behind the living room curtains. She had watched the entire conversation. She couldn't hear the words, but she didn't need to. All she saw was her husband talking privately to Grace. Again, her anger exploded. The next morning, she made a decision. Grace would no longer work inside the main house. You'll clean the garage, the storage rooms, and the guest quarters from now on, Vanessa announced. Grace nodded politely. Yes, ma'am. You are not to enter my bedroom. Yes, ma'am. You are not to serve meals unless I ask. Yes, ma'am. And from today, Vanessa looked directly into Grace's eyes. You will use the back entrance only. The room became silent. Even Marcus looked shocked. Vanessa, I'm simply setting boundaries. Grace calmly picked up her cleaning supplies. Without a single complaint, she walked toward the back door. But little Mia suddenly ran after her. Auntie Grace! Grace turned around. Mia hugged her tightly. I don't want you using the back door. Grace smiled gently. Some doors don't decide your worth. What does? The way you treat people. Mia nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand, but one day, she would. As Grace disappeared through the back entrance, Marcus watched with tears in his eyes. He realized something terrifying. The woman everyone believed had nowhere else to go, might soon walk away forever. And if she did, she wouldn't be the one losing everything. Grace accepted Vanessa's new rules without a single complaint. From that day on, she entered the mansion through the back door. She ate her meals alone in the small guest quarters. She no longer served dinner in the dining room, unless someone specifically called for her. To everyone else, it looked like another punishment. But Grace wasn't bothered by the change. She had survived far worse than rejection. She had survived betrayal. A few days passed. The mansion was quieter than usual. Even the children noticed something had changed. Jaden no longer found Grace in the kitchen every morning, because Vanessa insisted another employee serve breakfast. Mia secretly visited Grace whenever she could. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they simply sat together in silence. One afternoon, Mia asked a question Grace wasn't expecting. Auntie Grace, were you always a housekeeper? Grace smiled. No. What did you do before you came here? Grace looked out the window. I used to help people build dreams. What kind of dreams? The kind that can disappear overnight if you're not careful. Mia didn't understand, but something about Grace's answer stayed with her. Meanwhile, Marcus was falling apart. His company had just landed the biggest commercial project of the year. Television stations wanted interviews. Business magazines wanted photographs. Everyone called him a brilliant businessman. Every compliment felt like another weight on his conscience. Late one evening, after everyone had gone to bed, Marcus entered his home office. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk. Hidden beneath several business files was an old envelope. Inside was a faded photograph. The picture showed a much younger Marcus standing beside Grace. Both of them were smiling. Neither of them looked rich. Neither of them looked powerful. But they looked happy. Marcus gently traced the edge of the photograph with his finger. His mind drifted back 4 years. 4 years earlier, Marcus Bennett wasn't living in a mansion. He was living in fear. His real estate company had collapsed after a trusted business partner disappeared, with millions of dollars meant for investors. The banks froze his accounts. His office was locked. His luxury cars were repossessed. Every news station in Atlanta reported his downfall. Friends stopped answering his calls. Business partners disappeared overnight. Even relatives told him they couldn't help. For weeks, Marcus searched desperately for anyone willing to lend him money. No one trusted him anymore. One rainy evening, he sat alone inside his nearly empty office, staring at an eviction notice taped to the wall. He had reached the end. Then someone knocked on the door. When he looked up, Grace was standing there. At that time, she wasn't wearing an apron. She wasn't carrying cleaning supplies. She was dressed in a navy blue business suit, confident, elegant, successful. Marcus stared at her in disbelief. Grace, what are you doing here? She placed a folder on his desk. I heard what happened. Marcus looked away. I'll figure something out. You've been saying that for 3 months. I don't need pity. I didn't bring pity. She gently pushed the folder toward him. Marcus opened it. His eyes widened. Inside were bank documents, property records, investment papers, and one certified check. The amount was enough to rescue his business from complete collapse. Marcus looked at Grace in shock. Where did you get this kind of money? Grace smiled softly. My father believed in investing instead of showing off. I can't take this. You can. No. You once helped my family when nobody else would. Marcus looked confused. I never expected you to repay me. I'm not repaying you. She looked him straight in the eyes. I'm refusing to watch a good man lose everything. Marcus's voice trembled. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. Then what do I do? Grace answered without hesitation. When you stand again, Don't forget the hand that helped you. Marcus reached across the desk and took her hand. I swear to you, I will never forget. The memory ended. Marcus slowly closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his face. He had remembered the promise. He simply hadn't kept it. The next afternoon, Vanessa received an unexpected phone call. It was Nicole. I found something. Vanessa sat upright. What is it? I couldn't get into that locked wooden box. But? I asked around. And? Grace didn't always work as a housekeeper. Vanessa frowned. What do you mean? Years ago, she owned an investment consulting firm. Vanessa laughed. That's impossible. I'm serious. There are old newspaper articles with her picture. Vanessa's smile disappeared. No, I don't know what happened after that, but your housekeeper definitely had a very different life before she came to your house. Vanessa slowly lowered the phone. For the first time, she realized she knew absolutely nothing about the woman she had been insulting for years. At that exact moment, the mansion's front gate opened. A black luxury sedan drove inside. Grace looked through the kitchen window. She immediately recognized the car. She whispered to herself, so, it's finally time. The black luxury sedan rolled slowly through the front gates of the Bennett mansion. Grace stood quietly by the kitchen window, watching. She recognized the vehicle immediately. She had hoped this day would never come, but deep inside, she knew it had become unavoidable. Outside, the driver stepped out first, before opening the rear door. A sharply dressed woman, in her early 50s, emerged, carrying a black leather briefcase. It was Clara Robinson. Grace closed her eyes for a brief moment. The waiting is over, she whispered. In the living room, Vanessa noticed the unfamiliar visitor. She frowned. Who is that? Marcus looked through the window. The moment he saw Clara, his face turned pale. He had run out of excuses. He had run out of time. Before anyone could reach the front door, the doorbell rang. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed through the mansion. The butler opened the door. Good afternoon. I'm Clara Robinson. I have an appointment with Mr. Marcus Bennett. The butler glanced toward Marcus. Marcus slowly nodded. Please let her in. Clara walked into the mansion with quiet confidence. She greeted everyone politely. Good afternoon. Vanessa forced a smile. Welcome. Clara thanked her but didn't sit down. Instead, she looked directly at Grace. Their eyes met. No words were spoken. None were needed. Years of trust were exchanged in one silent glance. Vanessa noticed. Immediately, her suspicion turned into anger. Grace. Yes, ma'am. Go back to the kitchen. Grace nodded. Yes, ma'am. As she turned to leave, Clara calmly spoke. I would actually like Miss Grace Williams to remain. Vanessa looked surprised. You know my housekeeper? I do. Vanessa laughed awkwardly. That's interesting. Marcus closed his eyes. He knew exactly where this conversation was heading. Clara placed her briefcase on the coffee table. I apologize for arriving without much notice. Vanessa smiled politely. What is this concerning? A private legal matter. Marcus quickly interrupted. Perhaps we should discuss it in my office. Clara shook her head. No, this discussion concerns everyone living in this house. Vanessa looked confused. What are you talking about? Marcus swallowed hard. Before he could answer, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. It was his company's board chairman. I'll only be a minute. He stepped outside to answer the call. The moment he left the room, Vanessa folded her arms. I've had enough. She turned toward Grace. This ends today. Grace remained silent. Vanessa pointed toward the hallway leading to the guest quarters. Go pack your things. The room fell silent. Grace looked at her calmly. Ma'am, I've tolerated your strange behavior long enough. Nicole, who had stopped by for coffee, watched with satisfaction. I knew something wasn't right about her, she muttered. Vanessa continued. You've been meeting privately with my husband. You've been hiding things, and now lawyers are asking for you. I won't have this drama in my house. Grace spoke quietly. I have never disrespected you. You don't have to. Your presence is enough. Marcus hurried back inside after ending his phone call. What is going on? Vanessa pointed toward Grace. Your housekeeper is leaving. Marcus's voice became firm. No. Vanessa stared at him. What do you mean, no? I said, Grace isn't leaving. Nicole looked from Marcus to Grace in disbelief. Vanessa laughed bitterly. So everyone was right. Marcus frowned. What are you talking about? There is something between you two. There isn't. Then explain why you're defending her again. Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because every explanation led to the truth, and he wasn't ready to tell it. Vanessa's patience snapped. She marched toward the guest quarters. If she won't leave willingly, I'll pack her things myself. Grace stepped in front of her. There is no need. Vanessa folded her arms. So you finally agree. Grace nodded slowly. I'll pack. She walked calmly toward her room. Vanessa smiled triumphantly. You should have done this a long time ago. A few minutes later, Grace returned, carrying only one small brown leather bag. Nicole frowned. That's all she owns? Grace didn't answer. She placed the bag beside the front door. Marcus looked heartbroken. Grace? She gently raised her hand. Please. Don't! Clara quietly watched everything unfold. She checked the time on her wristwatch. Then she looked at Marcus. I gave you 4 years. Marcus lowered his head. I know. I gave you extensions. I know. I honored every request you made. I know. Vanessa looked back and forth between them. What exactly is everyone talking about? No one answered. The silence became unbearable. Little Mia suddenly ran downstairs. She saw Grace standing beside her bag. Auntie Grace, are you leaving? Grace knelt and hugged her tightly. I may have to. Mia burst into tears. No! Jaden came running after his sister. You can't leave! Grace smiled through her own tears. Sometimes life changes whether we're ready or not. Marcus wiped his eyes. He couldn't take it anymore. He looked at Clara, then at Grace, then at his family. His voice trembled. I'm sorry. Grace looked at him. So am I. Clara slowly opened her briefcase. One by one, she removed several official-looking documents. She placed them neatly on the coffee table. The room became completely silent. Then she looked at everyone and spoke the words that would change their lives forever. I believe it's finally time for the truth. The living room became so quiet that the ticking of the grandfather clock sounded louder than ever before. No one moved. No one spoke. Even Mia stopped crying. Clara Robinson slowly opened the first document and laid it on the coffee table. She looked at Marcus. Mr. Bennett, do I have your permission to proceed? Marcus closed his eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. His shoulders rose as he took a deep breath. Then he slowly nodded. Yes. His voice was barely above a whisper. You have my permission. Vanessa stared at her husband in disbelief. Permission for what? Marcus couldn't answer. The guilt he had carried for 4 years had finally become too heavy to hide. Clara looked around the room before speaking. What I am about to reveal is supported by legally binding documents, financial records, and property agreements filed with the state of Georgia. Vanessa laughed nervously. I don't understand why a lawyer is here. We're only letting a housekeeper go. Clara calmly replied. The woman you call a housekeeper is my client. The smile disappeared from Vanessa's face. Nicole shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Marcus lowered his head. Grace remained completely still. She didn't look proud. She didn't look angry. She simply looked tired. Clara lifted another document. 4 years ago, Marcus Bennett's real estate company suffered catastrophic financial losses after a business fraud investigation. She paused. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Marcus closed his eyes. Every painful memory returned. The banks froze his assets. Investors demanded repayment. Creditors prepared to seize every remaining property. Vanessa slowly turned toward her husband. You told me your investors rescued the company. Marcus whispered. I lied. Tears filled Vanessa's eyes. What? I couldn't tell you the truth. Clara continued. After every financial institution refused to help Mr. Bennett, one person stepped forward. She looked directly at Grace. Miss Grace Williams. Vanessa laughed in disbelief. No. Clara placed another document on the table. Miss Williams liquidated a significant portion of the inheritance left to her by her late parents. She revealed certified bank records, wire transfers, investment agreements, property deeds. Every page carried official government seals. Every signature had been verified. Every date matched. The evidence was impossible to deny. Using her personal inheritance, Miss Williams paid outstanding debts, stabilized Mr. Bennett's business, and financed the purchase of this residence. Vanessa's lips trembled. This can't be real. Clara calmly slid one final document across the table. The deed to this property. Vanessa picked it up with shaking hands. Her eyes searched for the owner's name. When she found it, the paper slipped from her fingers. Printed clearly across the top was one name. Grace Elaine Williams. The room seemed to stop spinning. Nicole covered her mouth. No. Marcus wiped tears from his face. It belongs to Grace. Vanessa slowly backed away. No. This is my home. Clara gently corrected her. You have been living here under a private occupancy agreement signed between Mr. Marcus Bennett and Miss Grace Williams. Vanessa looked at Marcus. Tell her she's lying. Marcus couldn't. Because she wasn't. It's true. Vanessa's knees nearly gave way. She collapsed onto the couch. For 4 years. I've been living. In her house? Marcus nodded through tears. Yes. Vanessa stared at Grace. All the memories came rushing back. Every insult. Every order. Every cruel laugh. Every time she had called Grace just the help. Every humiliation replayed in her mind. Grace looked at her with sadness, rather than anger. I never wanted your home. I only wanted honesty. Marcus finally found the courage to speak. When I lost everything, everyone abandoned me. My friends disappeared. My family refused to help. I had nothing. I was ready to lose my company and my future. He looked at Grace. She saved me. She trusted me. She believed I would keep my promise. His voice broke. I promised I would repay her. I promised she would always be treated with respect. I promised she would never regret helping me. He covered his face. And then, I became ashamed. As my business recovered, I kept delaying. I told myself I would fix everything tomorrow. But tomorrow became next month. Next month became next year. And before I realized it, 4 years had passed. He looked at Grace with tears streaming down his face. The greatest mistake of my life wasn't accepting your help. It was allowing you to suffer in silence. Grace slowly looked at Vanessa. I could have exposed the truth the first day I arrived. I could have demanded my house back. I could have embarrassed everyone, but I stayed. Do you know why? Vanessa shook her head. I wanted to see whether gratitude still lived in this house. A tear rolled down Grace's cheek. I wasn't testing your wealth. I was testing your hearts. No one had an answer, because they had all failed. At that moment, little Mia quietly walked over to Grace. She wrapped her arms around her. I knew you were special. Grace smiled through her tears and hugged the little girl tightly. Jaden followed. So, you're not really our housekeeper? Grace gently brushed his hair. No, I never really was. The room fell silent once again. Then Clara closed the file. There is only one matter left. Everyone looked at her. She spoke slowly. Miss Grace Williams must now decide. whether this family gets to remain in her home. Vanessa's heart nearly stopped. Marcus couldn't breathe. Grace looked around the mansion one last time. Then she quietly stood. I've made my decision. Grace's words hung in the air. I've made my decision. No one dared to speak. Marcus stood with his head bowed, unable to look her in the eyes. Vanessa's hands trembled uncontrollably. Even Nicole, who had spent years judging people by their appearance, suddenly wished she could disappear. Clara Robinson quietly closed the file and waited. The decision belonged to Grace, no one else. Grace slowly walked toward the large window overlooking the front yard. The evening sun bathed the mansion in a golden glow. She looked at the beautiful home. 4 years earlier, she had dreamed of filling it with laughter, gratitude, and peace. Instead, it had become a place where she was treated like she didn't matter. She turned back to face everyone. When I first came here, I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't trying to embarrass anyone. I came because I believed promises still meant something. She looked at Marcus. You once told me that character is revealed when no one is watching. Marcus lowered his head. I remember. So do I. Her voice remained calm, but every word carried weight. You didn't lose your character when your business failed. You lost it when your business succeeded. Marcus closed his eyes. There was no defense, no excuse, only truth. Grace then turned to Vanessa. The proud woman who had spent years looking down on her could no longer meet her gaze. Vanessa slowly stood. Tears streamed down her face. I owe you more than an apology. She took a few hesitant steps forward. I judged you because of your uniform. I assumed your job determined your worth. I spoke to you in ways I would never want anyone to speak to me. Her voice cracked. I humiliated you in front of my children, my friends, and strangers. She wiped away her tears. I can't erase what I did. But if forgiveness is something I can earn, I'll spend the rest of my life trying. Grace looked at her for a long moment. Then she spoke softly. Forgiveness is a gift. It isn't a reward. Vanessa nodded through her tears. I understand. Grace gently placed a hand on Vanessa's shoulder. I forgave you long before today. Vanessa looked up in surprise. You did? Grace smiled. Hatred is too heavy to carry. I chose peace instead. Vanessa broke down crying. For the first time in years, her tears weren't caused by fear. They were caused by genuine remorse. Nicole quietly stepped forward. I laughed at you. I joined in when others mocked you. I never once asked who you were. Grace nodded. I hope this day teaches you something, Nicole whispered. It already has. Clara watched the exchange silently. Then she asked the question everyone was waiting for. Miss Williams, what would you like to do regarding the property? Grace looked around the mansion. The walls had witnessed every insult, every lie, every act of kindness from the children, every silent tear. She smiled softly. This house has already carried enough pain. Everyone listened carefully. I have no intention of throwing this family onto the street. Marcus looked up, stunned. What? Grace nodded. The occupancy agreement will remain in place. Relief washed over Marcus's face. But the room became quiet again. There will be new conditions. Marcus straightened immediately. Anything. First, you will repay every dollar I invested, exactly as agreed. No delays. No excuses. Marcus nodded without hesitation. I will. Second, she looked directly at Vanessa. No one who works in this house will ever be insulted again. Not the cleaners. Not the gardener. Not the cook. Not anyone. Vanessa answered immediately. I promise. Third, Grace smiled toward Mia and Jaden. The children will grow up knowing that every person deserves respect, no matter what job they do. Jaden nodded. I already learned that. Mia hugged Grace again. I'll never forget. Grace laughed softly. I know you won't. Then she turned back to Marcus. I'll be moving into the guest wing while the legal transfer and repayment are completed. Marcus looked surprised. You don't want the master bedroom? Grace shook her head. A room doesn't make someone important. The heart does. Those words settled over everyone like a gentle reminder. A few weeks later, the Bennett home felt completely different. The shouting had stopped. The insults had disappeared. Employees were greeted by name. They were thanked for their work. Meals were shared with kindness instead of criticism. Marcus kept every repayment deadline, not because he feared losing the mansion, but because he finally understood that integrity is worth more than wealth. Vanessa began volunteering at a local shelter that supported domestic workers and low-income families. She often shared her own story, not to gain sympathy, but to warn others about the danger of judging people by appearances. Nicole changed too. Whenever someone mocked a waiter, cleaner, or janitor, she was the first to speak up. I once made that mistake, she would say. I'll never make it again. As for Grace, she quietly reopened the community foundation her parents had started years earlier. Instead of spending her wealth on luxury, she used it to help struggling families, provide scholarships for young students, and support small business owners who had lost hope. She understood something many wealthy people never did. Money could build houses, but only kindness could build homes. One warm Saturday afternoon, Mia and Jaden helped Grace plant flowers in the front garden. Jaden smiled. I'm glad you stayed. Grace looked at the blooming flowers. So am I, Mia asked. Auntie Grace, what's the most important thing you've ever learned? Grace thought for a moment before answering. Never measure someone's value by the work they do. The person serving your meal today may have once saved someone's future. And the person everyone ignores may be carrying a sacrifice no one else was willing to make. She looked at the mansion one final time. It was still the same beautiful house. The expensive walls hadn't changed. The marble floors hadn't changed. The luxury cars were still parked outside. But the people inside, they had changed. And sometimes, that is the greatest miracle of all.